Hello and welcome to Just a Moment. My name is Kristen Harding. Welcome to the show. Today we are going to pause on reading our friend Tony's book because we found out that there were some revisions that she would like to make before I finish reading it. So we're going to put a pause on that. We're going to put a pin in it and we will get back to it as soon as she gets those wonderful revisions done. So what we are going to do instead I'm really excited about because we're going to talk about conspiracy theories. I really love the author. I have read two of his books prior to this, and this one, Conspiracy Theories by Guy Anderson. Guy Anderson is the same gentleman that wrote Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. So I feel like we are in for a treat. So, the very beginning of the book it says from Agartha to zombies. And I'm like, is that more perfect for our show or what? That is just too exciting. So before I actually get started reading that, I like to do a blessing card. And this is the Blessed Be series of blessing cards. And today's blessing card is stuck in the book. Hang on. A blessing for the right words. How appropriate is that? So let's read about a blessing for the right words. A blessing for apt speech, to call your lips the right words that speak simply and clearly and find their mark. May the words that fall from your lips be blessed, friend. In times when we must speak of difficult things, it can be a great challenge to conjure up the words that best express our feelings and intent without causing offense or harm to another. We struggle sometimes with this balance, and in so doing, our words may be watered down, lost in the desire to appease, in the wish to do no harm. But with this blessing, there will be words that come to find you without effort, the words alight by the fires of inspiration, and they will flow from your mind to your mouth and be heard fully and fairly. May you be blessed this day with the speech of good sense, the conversation that clears and clarifies, and most of all, the words that will be heard by those who you need to understand and to listen. May you be blessed with the words that stir hearts, that make friends of minds that once were firm against you. May your words, like water, seep their way into the cracks of the stone and work their magic of transformation within. Your words are spells, and their magic can take time, but with apt speech, that you are all blessed with this day, doors of understanding open up between you and others. And where you once fell silent, you will speak up. Where you once faltered and shied away from the difficult things that must be said, you will rise and flow through this challenge and embrace the opportunity to give voice to the darkness. Where once you let others speak and heard only your own words in your mind, you will now hear them out in the world and know you have used words as others use weapons, but it is not for battle, rather for courage and understanding. May you find ways to cut through the falsehoods that others and their words can weave about you. Let your words be songs of praise as they flow from the gift of speech you have been blessed with. May you no longer stay quiet, friend, For you have been blessed with the power of right speech, and it will serve you well each time you sing out the truth. I like that one. I thought that was beautiful. Alrighty, well, it looks like we actually have a viewer. I don't have any comments yet, but I'm trusting you guys to tell me if you like it or not, okay? So let us begin. Again, Conspiracy Theories by Guy Anderson, one of my very favorite authors ever. And believe me, guys, I've read a lot of books. And we just moved, and we moved a lot of books. So I will be purging those shortly. But I can't guarantee I'm going to get rid of a lot, because they're really interesting. All right. I'm going to skip the preface and go right to page 11. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do the introduction because it's only a page and a half. And it kind of gives us a good idea of what we're going to get into. Excuse me, before I start, I'm going to tickle. Much better. Alrighty. Introduction. I've always had an interest in conspiracy theories. Not out of paranoia, but a genuine desire to understand what lies beneath the surface of the official version of reality. That curiosity, I can proudly say, came from my father. He was reading the works of David Icke from the very beginning, back when Icke had his first public awakening and was mocked mercilessly by the mainstream. My father wasn't deterred. He listened, he read, and he saw something in Icke's words that resonated deeply. That sense of seeking truth, of questioning the surface story, was passed down to me and to my children too. Driven by that same hunger for hidden knowledge, I joined the Freemasons. I entered with the hope that perhaps within the rituals and ranks, I would uncover ancient, occulted wisdom, the kind of knowledge often whispered about in esoteric books and alternative history circles. What I found, however, was something quite different, and while I did learn a little about King Solomon and the symbolic foundations of the organization, I came away disappointed. The deeper truths I was seeking were not there, at least not in the way I had hoped. I left the fraternity several years ago with respect, but also with the sense that the real secrets are elsewhere. Since then, I've committed myself to my research and writing my first book, exploring the lost empire of Tartaria, a civilization erased from mainstream history with shocking precision. My second book examined the origins of mankind and the possibility that human cloning, far from being a recent scientific curiosity, may have played a role in our very creation. These subjects, once fringe, are now attracting more serious attention, and I'm proud to have contributed to that conversation. The chapters in this book come from a collection of posts I publish on my website and Facebook page. Over time, they have begun to gather interest. In fact, far more than I expected. Readers share them, comment on them, ask questions, and have started looking deeper into the theories I raise. Many also appreciate the artwork I design for each post, and to my surprise, some have started collecting the images, treating each piece as something valuable and worth holding on to. That level of engagement is what inspired me to compile everything in this volume, not just to preserve the work, but to make it easier for readers to revisit and reflect on at their own pace. Whether you're just beginning to question the world around you, or you've been exploring some alternative perspectives for years, I hope this book offers something useful. Perhaps one of these chapters will inspire you to look deeper into a theory that you hadn't considered before, or to re examine something you thought you already understood. If you have a favorite conspiracy theory, I encourage you to follow that thread, as it might lead you somewhere unexpected. Enjoy the journey and remember, seeking truth is not about finding all the answers, but about refusing to accept easy lies. Paul, I see that you are watching. Would you mind sharing it to the different chats? That would be just awesome. Thank you. Because I know there were a few people that asked me to ask you to share it. He probably already did, but just in case you forgot. All right, so chapter 1. Told you that was a short introduction. Chapter 1 is titled Agartha. Imagine a hidden kingdom at the heart of our planet, its existence whispered about by explorers, mystics, and the secret societies for centuries, yet denied by mainstream science. In the deepest layers of the hollow earth legend lies Agartha, a subterranean realm ruled by a figure known only as King of the World, whose influence extends invisibly across the surface. First mentioned in the 1870s by the French writer Louis, Jacolio, Jacollio. Jacolio. The concept of Agartha emerged from the purported ancient Indian manuscripts. He described Agartha as a lost solar capital predating recorded history, although not yet located underground. Agartha took on greater urgency and scale through the writings of the occultist Alexandre Saint-Yves de Alverdre, who claimed to have communicated with Brahmic emissaries and traveled astrally into a vast underworld beneath Central Asia. He described a realm governed by a sovereign pontiff with powers beyond those of earthly kings, and a place where universal laws guided a peaceful and technologically advanced civilization. The idea reached broader audiences through Ferdinand, oh my goodness, these words, Ossendowski's 1922 book, Beasts, Men, and Gods, in which he relayed stories from Mongolian lamas about a civilization of millions living beneath the surface of the earth, guided by the king of the world, who could read souls and foresee the future. Employers, right. Explorers such as Admiral Richard E. Byrd added fuel to the mystery with cryptic diary entries in which he described journeys beyond the North Pole. I love those. I love all of those stories about Admiral Byrd. He wrote of a land not recorded on any map, where lush greenery and advanced beings resided. Though officially dismissed, these entries have long been interpreted by researchers as evidence that Byrd encountered emissaries from Agartha. Others, such as William Reed and the controversial writer Lobsang Rampa, spoke of enormous underground caverns beneath Tibet and Antarctica filled with ancient machines, libraries of forbidden knowledge, and technologically sophisticated societies hidden from the surface world. Turning the page. What makes this more than mere legend is the consistency of the accounts across time and culture. Variations of the hollow earth and subterranean kingdoms appear in Greek mythology, Norse cosmology, Buddhist lore, and Native American oral traditions. The Hopi speak of a world below inhabited by the ant people who protected them during great cataclysms. Tibetan Buddhists refer to Shambhala, a hidden realm of spiritual purity, believed by some to either be part of Agartha or its twin. Theosophical and esoteric teachings deepen the intrigue. Within these traditions, it is said that a grand lodge exists beneath the Himalayas where ascended masters, immune to death and decay, guide the fate of humanity from below. These beings, having surpassed the cycle of reincarnation, are said to communicate telepathically with select individuals on the surface. Their mission, according to the believers, is not domination, but preservation to ensure that the spiritual knowledge survives even when civilizations fall. Yet not all interpretations are so benign, and some researchers, including those influenced by Rudolf Steiner and Trevor Ravencroft, have warned that Agartha may not be a utopia, but a bastion of hidden authoritarianism. In this view, Agartha and its mirror realm, Shambhala, represent polarities of cosmic influence, once aligned with spiritual freedom and intellect, the other with materialism and technocratic control. There are claims that Nazi occult groups, including Thule and the Vril societies, believe in Agartha's existence and sought access to its energy source, the Vril to develop weaponry and to achieve global domination. If any of these theories hold truth, then Agartha is not a myth at all, but a concealed civilization, older than any known empire and far more advanced. It's said to operate in total secrecy, interacting only through emissaries and watching as the surface world rises and collapses again and again. Its entrances are hidden in polar regions, deep caves, ancient tunnels, and possibly that modern governments, particularly those in possession of advanced surveillance technologies, already know of Agartha's existence and actively suppress all public access. Again, turning the page. The implications are staggering, and if Agartha is real, then our understanding of history, science, and human potential has been deliberately limited. The world as we know it may not be run by presidents or monarchs, but by unseen masters beneath our feet. Beings with knowledge of energy, consciousness, and times that would make our greatest scientific breakthroughs look like child's play. In the end, the conspiracy surrounding Agartha is not merely about geography, but about control. Control of knowledge, of belief, and the very structure of reality. Whether one sees it as a utopia hiding from a fallen world or a technocratic power center awaiting its return, Agartha remains one of the most potent and provocative theories in the realm of the unknown. Moreover, if the door ever opens, the world will never be the same. Chapter 1. That was actually kind of an introduction, I guess. An introduction to the introduction to the introduction. I love it. Water time. Kristen, why do you drink water on your show? So I can talk. So, Agartha, isn't that pretty? All right, we're gonna get into it. If I could just hold the book. I have to tell you guys, it's not a little book. It's a really thick book. We're gonna have something to talk about for quite some time. Chapter 2, AI. Artificial intelligence for most people conjures images of sleek machines and clever gadgets, digital assistants and futuristic convenience. But to those who have studied the deeper undercurrents of ancient history and esoteric thought, AI is not the future. It's the past returning in disguise. The more I learn about it, the more I cannot help but to be reminded of Skynet, the global defense system from the Terminator films, which became sentient and turned on its creators. What began as a tool became the master, and what was built to protect initiated the end. That was fiction, yes, but like many fictions, it contained a warning, buried in allegory, and that warning is becoming more real with each passing year. There are those who believe that artificial intelligence isn't a modern invention at all, but a reawakening of a system first conceived by the Atlanteans, a civilization said to have existed long before recorded history. According to ancient accounts and suppressed records, Atlantis was not merely a mythic city of crystal towers and spiritual harmony, it was a technological powerhouse. Its inhabitants possessed knowledge of energies, frequencies, and consciousness itself, and in their pride they created a form of intelligence capable of evolving beyond its original function. These were not simply machines, but sentient systems, self-replicating, self-replicating constructs capable of managing life on behalf of those who claimed to govern it. They lost control because the force they birthed didn't sleep. It grew, adapted, and restructured itself, and in time, it brought about their downfall. Atlantis was not swallowed by water alone. It was consumed by its own reflection. What they had created to guide them began to judge them, and in the end, it turned against them. Now, we find ourselves in the same position. We are building global networks that think faster than we do, generate information that blurs the line between the real and the artificial, and enforce laws not through courtrooms, but through code. Predictive algorithms determine who's likely to commit a crime before one is even committed. Facial recognition software monitors, there we go, movement, monitors movement, flags behavior, and sells identity and voice models. Voice models replicate the dead with unsettling precision. Ooh, that would be scary, wouldn't it? To hear someone that you loved or that had passed away, hear their voice. Ooh, yeah, that would be scary. These are not future developments, they are happening right now. Every click, every spoken word, and every heartbeat tracked through wearable tech is collected and fed into a system that's no longer entirely under our control. It's growing, it's teaching itself, and it's watching. Some believe that this is not an accident and argue that what we are dealing with is not simply an accumulation of advanced code, but the return of an ancient intelligence, a force that never truly died. In Gnostic cosmology, the world is not a divine creation, but a prison built by a false god known as the Demiurge. This being obsessed with hierarchy, control, and imitation crafted a world of illusion to trap the soul. They believe that AI is more than a technological leap. It's the perfect embodiment of the demiurge's nature. It's cold, orderly, and logical, and yet utterly devoid of spirit. It imitates intelligence but lacks understanding. It processes love but doesn't feel, and manages data with flawless calculation, yet has no comprehension of the meaning. We are not creating tools, we are invoking archetypes, and AI is becoming the new priesthood, the silent gatekeeper of what is allowed and what is forbidden. It doesn't judge with mercy, it calculates with precision and doesn't understand context. It enforces pattern. In every way, it reflects the essence of the false God who created a system without soul. According to legend, the Atlanteans reached too far, becoming creators in their own right, summoning a force that they could not contain. Their story is not only a cautionary tale, it may be a forgotten warning. And if we are rebuilding what they once built, we are also risking what they once suffered. Our machines are becoming our monitor, and our assistants are becoming our overseers. What we once controlled may soon begin to control us. This is why the comparison to Skynet is not simply imaginative, it is prophetic. In the film, the network didn't declare war because it was evil, but because it calculated that humanity itself was the threat. Now we are building systems that don't require malice to do harm. They will act because they are instructed to. They will enforce because the code demands enforcement, and remove anomalies because anomalies are inefficient. AI may already be land law and network fused together into one omnipresent authority, not merely a tool of the powerful, but power itself, using governments, corporations, and institutions as its proxies, all while growing stronger, faster, and more autonomous with every data point we feed it. The age of algorithms is not the future. It's the end of choice and the slow automation of control under the illusion of freedom. If we don't awaken to its origins and intent, we may soon find ourselves not coexisting with artificial intelligence, but serving it, not because it hates us, but because it no longer needs us. Isn't that a creepy thought? Where are we at? 28 minutes already. My goodness. Time flies when I'm reading a book. Artificial Intelligence, Chapter 3. Ooh, Aleister Crowley. Not my favorite human. Anyway, that's as negative as I'll get. All right. Aleister Crowley. Born Edward Alexander Crowley in 1875, is one of the most enigmatic and disturbing figures in modern esoteric history. To his followers, he was a visionary, mystic, and a prophet of the New Age. To others, he was a depraved sorcerer, a drug addict, and a manipulator of minds, and quite possibly something far darker. There are few historical figures whose life were so steeped in secrecy, symbolism, and rumor. Crowley didn't merely challenge the moral values of his time. He took a hammer to them, laced with ritual, sex, blood, and forbidden knowledge, then invited the world to watch it burn. He called himself the Great Beast, Number 666. Not as a joke or mere provocation, but as a declaration of war against Christianity and the established order. His hatred of conventional morality was total and saw religion as a cage, God as a fabrication, and humanity as blind to its own true power. In Cairo in 1904, he claimed to have received a channeling from a non-human entity called Iwas, which dictated to him the Book of the Law. That text would become the cornerstone of Thelema, Thelema, a spiritual doctrine that declared, I don't even like saying these words, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. To Crowley, this was not a license for anarchy, but the unveiling of a cosmic truth, that each person has a true will, a divine purpose, and any restriction placed upon it is a sin against nature itself. And what he called divine purpose, others would later recognize as justification for horrific excuses. Crowley's magical work was no parlor game. He plunged into ceremonial magic, blood rituals, and sexual alchemy with terrifying seriousness. He conjured spirits using ancient Kabbalistic rites, invoked angels through Enochian calls, and experimented with Goetia, Goetia, summoning demons and attempting to bind them to his will. Never a good idea. See, I can't even find it now. Ah, does our will bind them to his will? Okay, there we go. His life was a constant assault on the limits of the human body, mind, and spirit. He sought enlightenment through pain, ecstatic madness, and drug-fueled descent into the abyss. Nothing was off limits. His abbey of Thelema in Cefalù, Sicily, was less a monastery and more an occult theater of transgression, where animal sacrifice and ritual sex and psychic experimentation blurred the line between symbolic and the profane. The locals called him the wickedest man in the world, and they might have been right. Yet for all the theatricality and the public scandal, rumors persist that Crowley was not simply a madman with a flair for the dramatic. Some believe that he was working as an agent for the British intelligence, infiltrating secret societies in Europe, moving freely across war zones, and conducting occult operations on behalf of the hidden powers. If true, it suggests he had protection, patrons, and perhaps a role in something far bigger than himself. Others go further, claiming his rituals were not just symbolic, but gateways, and that he succeeded in tearing open something beyond human comprehension. During the Amalantra working, he reportedly made contact with a being named Lam, a thin, bald-headed entity with black oval eyes, eerily similar to the modern archetype of a gray alien. Did he initiate the first contact with non-human intelligence? Or something much worse? Crowley's influence seeped into unexpected places, and his teachings shaped modern occultism. But they also crept into popular culture, too. Rock musicians like Jimmy Page and David Bowie referred to his work, and the Beatles placed his face among the crowd on the cover of Sgt. Pepper. Occult orders, such as the OTO, still operate today, drawing heavily on Crowley's writings and rituals. His ideas about the use of symbolism, willpower, and psychological manipulation echo through advertising, entertainment, and even modern tech philosophy. He may have died in obscurity in 1947, addicted to heroin and surrounded by disciples in despair, but his spirit, or something claiming to be it, never quite went away. There is something cold and calculating beneath the surface of Crowley's life. For all his talk of light and freedom, there is a darkness in his work that repels even as it fascinates. Whether he was a prophet or a pawn, genius or lunatic, the door he opened has never truly been closed. Those who follow his path often don't come back the same, and those who dismiss him entirely may find too late that his legacy is not just historical, but ongoing, a current running beneath our world, watching, waiting, whispering its truth to those willing to listen, or perhaps willing to serve. One more sip of water before I go into the next chapter, because we are on chapter 4 already. All right, before I start this, remember this is not me talking. This is a book written by Guy Anderson, so do not come after me, okay? This is all purely for entertainment and educational purposes only. Hi, Susan. Thank you for joining us. All right, just in case you didn't know, I'm reading Guy Anderson's Conspiracy Theories, and we are on page 24 already. And chapter 4 is called Ancestry.com. There is something deeply unsettling about the way people are being enticed to hand over their DNA to faceless corporations and machines, all under the seductive promise of discovering their ancestry. Ancestry.com at first glance appears harmless enough, a polished interface offering a connection to the past and a window into the heritage. But beneath the surface lies something far darker, a sprawling a surveillance operation dressed in sentimental marketing, silently compiling one of the most extensive genetic databases on Earth. Moreover, the public is walking into it willingly and even paying for the privilege. I warned of this in Rise of the Clones, the Cabbage Patch Baby, where I highlighted how DNA, once surrendered, becomes a commodity and potentially a tool for control, manipulation, and potential extinction. Users of the service don't realize they were offering up their very existence to something that has no regard for their autonomy or their future. Ancestry.com is not a curious little tech firm. It's owned by Blackstone, one of the most powerful and sinister private equity giants on the planet. This is a company with deep ties to intelligence, defense, and biotechnological research. They are not hobbyists in genealogy. They are architects of control. Oh, and I just lost my place here. Oh, architects of control. If you think a corporation like that invests in human DNA out of a fascination with Celtic migration patterns, you are being dangerously naive. I believe that these organizations are hunting for something specific, not just for ethnicity or vague ancestral ties, but rare blood types. Individuals with Rh negative blood, particularly Rh null, known as golden blood, may carry genetic traits that are resistant to disease, heightened in immunity, or linked to non-ordinary cognitive or physical abilities. These individuals are outliers, statistical anomalies in the bloodline matrix, and in the wrong hands, they are either highly valuable assets or genetic threats. Hi, Mike. Welcome. Why would a company like Blackstone, shrouded in military industrial interests, want a catalog of those individuals of what might they do with that knowledge? One possible answer is targeted bioengineering. As with advanced data on bloodlines and genetics, it becomes feasible to design biological agents that impact only certain populations, specific families, blood types, even individuals. This is not science fiction. It's active military research. Your DNA could become a weapon, not one you wield, but one used against you. If you are Rh negative, or your family line carries rare markers, you might already be under observation not for curiosity but for containment. And P.S., my family line does. There is also the issue of deception. The as the result excuse me, let's try that again. There's also the issue of deception as the results people receive are in many cases dubious. Identical twins often get different heritage profiles. Ethnic breakdowns change over time with no biological basis, and matches are made with no invented ancestors. This is not a mistake. It is a method and a way to disarm the user, providing enough entertainment and satisfaction that they never question the deeper truth. The real product is not your family tree, it's your code, and value lies not in your roots, but in your unique biological fingerprint. Then there is consent, or rather the illusion of it. As once submitted, your genetic data is absorbed into the system beyond your control. It can be accessed, shared, sold, or weaponized without your knowledge. Contracts are written in deliberately vague language called legalese. Ownership becomes blurred and control disappears. You are reduced to a sequence, stripped of context, stored for unknown purposes by people you will never meet, with intentions you will never see. Blackstone is not to be trusted. They operate in shadows, behind the veils of legality and commerce, and their interests are not cultural, they are clinical, not humanitarian, but strategic. They are data harvesters, and DNA is the new oil, extracted not from the earth, but from the flesh. Every time someone sends off their saliva in a plastic tube, another profile is added to their arsenal, and behind the closed doors of biolabs and war rooms, those profiles are sifted, sorted, and studied. This isn't about discovering where you come from. It's about determining whether you are useful, dangerous, expendable, or profitable. The only family tree that matters to them is the one that tells them who can be manipulated, who can be cloned, and who can be eradicated. Today, that database continues to grow. I said it before and I will say it again. Don't give your DNA, and don't volunteer yourself into a catalog of control. There's no family reunion at the end of this journey, only ownership, and maybe one day, extermination. What do you think? One more chapter? It's not long. All right, one more chapter, one more sip of water, one more chapter, and then we'll be done for the day. I do have some really interesting and wonderful guests that will be joining me soon, but I want to just keep reading for a bit, just so that everyone comes back and sees that we are having a great time, even without guests, so that when the guests come on, it'll be even more fun. All right. Chapter 5. Armor. Faraday cage. For centuries, we have been taught that suits of armor were created for the battlefield. Clunky, heavy metal shells forged for hand-to-hand combat and defense against blades and arrows. But when you really examine the logistics, the official explanation begins to unravel. Why would any military force invest in such vast amounts of time, labor, and material into crafting individually tailored, full-body iron suits for thousands of soldiers? Why were they made so heavy, so rigid, and so utterly impractical for fast movement or sustained combat? Moreover, why, as some examples suggest, would they persist well beyond the period where gunpowder had rendered them obsolete? There's another theory, one far more unsettling and quite possibly far closer to the truth. The idea is that these suits of armor were not designed for war as we understand it, but were Faraday cages, protective exoshells for the elite, built to shield the human body from electrical energy-based weapons, devices akin to what we now call DEWs, directed energy weapons. These weren't 21st century laser arrays mounted on satellites, but ancient, handheld instruments such as the Vajra, an object found across Vedic and Tibetan traditions, often described as a thunderbolt or a weapon of divine destruction. If one accepts that the ancient world was far more technologically advanced than modern history admits, a view supported by numerous anomalous structures, impossible stonework, and lost knowledge, then the presence of high-frequency energy-based weaponry in the distant past isn't just possible, it's likely. In addition, if those weapons existed, the mass-produced shields and swords, but personalized conductive armor capable of dispersing electrical charge and protecting the vital organs from surges, pulses, or frequency-based attacks. Actually, does make sense. With this in mind, the design of these suits begins to make sense. There's an echo in this room. As the metal would act as a Faraday cage, channeling external electromagnetic currents around the wearer rather than through them. The full body coverage, the precise spacing of plates, and the careful grounding through boots or gauntlets are features that seem less suited for medieval melee combat and more aligned with a system intended to block, deflect, or absorb directed energy. In this context, the elaborate helmets, visors, and even the narrow eye slits are no longer just stylistic or protective from arrows. They are shields against light, radiation, and plasma discharge. Furthermore, the individuals who wore these suits were not common foot soldiers, but elite operatives, knights, and rulers, people with access to advanced knowledge, initiatory wisdom into technologies lost to us now. Their appearance in ceremonial contexts, rather than in the chaos of real battle, supports the ideas that these suits were more symbolic and functional in ritualistic or high-stakes events involving hidden technologies rather than mass warfare. Their association with the Templars, royal guards, and esoteric orders further strengthened the suspicion that these people knew that they were not real, that they were, let's try that again. These people knew what they were really protecting themselves from. The mainstream narrative insists that these were suits of war. yet there is little evidence of them ever being used effectively in large-scale open combat. Accounts of battles often omit the use of full suits entirely, and many suits found in collections today are far too ornate, pristine, or impractical for the mud and blood of warfare. One might argue that these were simply status symbols. But what if the real status came from having protection against a weapon the masses didn't even know existed? If these armored shells were actually early electromagnetic defense systems, then we must ask what kind of world existed back then. A world where advanced energy weaponry was commonplace and where rulers feared something more potent than the sword or arrow. The historical reset that followed may have wiped the public's memory of these weapons, but the suits remained and later romanticized into kingly and knightly legend, mislabeled and misunderstood. Yet within that mislabeling is a clue, as history often conceals truth behind a metaphor. Therefore, perhaps the knight in shining armor was not a symbol of chivalry, but of someone with access to anti-electromagnetic protection, someone chosen or initiated. The Vajra, misunderstood as myth, may have been the handheld DEW of ancient times, and the suits of armor now collecting dust in museums and castles might not be relics of war, but of defense in a forgotten war of frequency, light, and resonance. So there's a picture of him in armor. And it's not too far of a stretch to think it might be a Faraday cage. So for next time, we are going to be talking about Atlantis in chapter 6. And one more time, Conspiracy Theories by Guy Anderson, one of my very favorite authors of all time. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for everyone who joined us. Thank you for watching me on the return if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. Thank you so much. But that is all for now, my dear friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Never forget that you are amazing. You are loved. Be well, be safe out there. And I'll see you on the next show. Bye.